Happy Friday. As you probably know, the San Francisco 49ers lost their QB1 to injury for this weekend's game against the Green Bay Packers. And so there is some bad news there, but there's also some good news I can't wait to tell you about. Everything is to play for, so we're going to take every positive that we can find right now. If you're new here, I'm Nate. I make daily 49ers content. Please subscribe if that's what you're looking for. But as you already know, Brock Purdy is out for the game, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That is bad news. But I will tell you there is a slight positive there. I also need to mention, while we're on the bad news train, I kind of forgot to say it, Charvarius Ward, Nick Bosa, potentially even Trent Williams will also be out. So that's not good news there. The positive, however, lies with Brock Purdy. And we've got a lot to break down in this video, so stick around to the end. But let's talk about the Brock Purdy situation, because the way that this shook out, okay, this is how I'll put it. Brock Purdy is worse than expected. However, he is better than they feared. And what I mean by that is that on Wednesday, everybody thinks Brock Purdy's going to be fine. That's how everyone's talking about it. I'm doing videos on it. Looks like things are good, shaping up well, okay? Then Thursday, all of a sudden, still not really feeling really good. He did a little bit more, according to Kyle Shanahan, but then he left practice early, and it was pretty obvious what's going on there. What was going on there is he was leaving to go get an MRI because his shoulder wasn't better. So that was not good. And Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch both talked about how that was worse than they expected, and that was not a good sign. You send someone to get an MRI because you're expecting it's possible you might see something a lot worse. The good news is, according to John Lynch on KMBR, Brock Purdy underwent an MRI on his shoulder, and we feel good about where it's at from that standpoint. In fact, even thinking when he said this on KNBR, he said he'll show up here today and we'll see where he goes from practice and we'll go forth accordingly. So, yes, tenuous, that kind of things. Brandon Allen's going to get first snaps. There's other things there, all right? I'm not intentionally skipping them over. But the fact that John Lynch actually thought that Brock Purdy could have shown up to practice today tells me that it was very much determined based on his level of soreness, not based on, the level of the injury. The MRI was good. That is a good sign. This is not a long-term injury. Knock on wood. As far as we can tell so far, it looks like a really good sign. So that means for playoff hopes, even if you take a hit against the Green Bay Packers, there's still a shot, guys. There's still a chance Brock Purdy comes back and they do the unthinkable and go and beat those Buffalo Bills next week coming off of a bye, which would be pretty crazy. I guess technically you could say Brock Purdy's coming off a bye. That's a way to look at it. But look, there's some other positives out there I want to get to, okay? Firstly, I want to talk about the fact that people have been really critical of the scheme. And I'm just saying it like it is. Like, you've been critical of the scheme, most likely, if you're watching this video. And at some point this season. And there have been some disappointments with Christian McCaffrey coming back. And we watched Jordan Mason. We watched Isaac Guerrero both find their stride at times and have good games most of the time. And do some pretty impressive things. And so then you look at Christian McCaffrey comes back, he's your guy, right? I mean, he's the guy. Of course he's the guy. But is he back 100%? Is he healthy yet? No. And I think Kyle Shanahan's trying to play him into form. However, he's not into form yet. That's just the way that it is. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I just don't think he's playing into form. And what this injury does, I know, I'm getting there, okay? What this injury does is it puts the 49ers in an interesting situation where they probably already were going into this game against Green Bay saying, we're going to have to run the ball a lot. If the weather isn't great, if the field's still wet, we're going to have to run the ball a lot. And here's a situation where the 49ers now have a backup quarterback out there, and they trust Brandon Allen to do some things. And yes, I kind of want to see the pass or not. That's kind of my gut feeling, but it is a little bit of a toss-up. And Kyle Shanahan knows exactly what he's trying to get out of the quarterback and knows how he wants the quarterback to stay in the pocket, how long he wants him to stay in the pocket. And I think that's probably a determining factor, although, you get that Dobbs effect when he goes and runs the ball, and there's a benefit there. There's also a risk there. And I think that I'm just guessing that the 49ers trust Brandon Allen a little bit more, and that's why Kyle Shanahan's going to give him the nod. Now, we can argue and debate about that in the comments all that you want, and that's more than welcome to do that. I look forward to joining the conversation, as always, and seeing what you guys comment. I think it's a lot of fun. But if Brandon Allen's out there, I'm guessing he's not going to be slinging the ball as regularly this season as Brock Purdy has. Brock Purdy's been slinging the ball a lot more this season than he typically does. So that means that the running game is going to be more in the 35 to 40 count in terms of rushing. If it's in the 35, possibly 40 level of rushing, I guarantee you that is not going to be CMC 35 to 40 rushes. That's not going to happen, okay? Now, I know, guaranteeing that Kyle Shanahan's going to let another guy run the ball, I understand that sounds like a crazy thing, but there's just no way. That's not going to happen. So you're going to see Jordan Mason out there. You're going to see Isaac Guerrero out there too, potentially, if the 49ers choose to run the ball more, which I think that they should. There's no guarantee that they will. If they have Brandon Allen out there and they're having him sling it like they did Brock Purdy, I'll be very surprised by that. And you let me know in the comments what you think as always. There's still another positive out there I wanted to get to while we're talking about playoff chances, okay? Because there's still totally a shot even if they lose this game. Now, it's a slim shot, all right? I'm first person to tell you 15% is not what you're looking for in terms of your odds of making the playoffs. But there is still a shot, even if you lose to Green Bay. You basically are saying, I have to beat Buffalo now, which is a much tougher game on paper. Okay? So that being said, how has Brock Purdy, if he's healthy again, how has Brock Purdy played this season so far? No, he's not been the Brock Purdy of last season, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I think there's some interesting comments out there, like Kyle Shanahan saying that the team's a little bit different around him and things like that. I think there's some fascinating stuff there. But just by the numbers, total yards, he's second. He's second in yards per play. He's fourth in net pass yards per attempt. He's fourth in rush yards per attempt. He's eighth in points scored. He's first in average yards per drive. He's 10th in average points per drive, and he's 26th in red zone. Continuing on, he still ranks high in the following categories. This is all from Chase Sr., by the way. Yards per attempt, he's third. Air yards per attempt, he's fifth. Passing yards, sixth. And deep ball percentage, seventh. Okay? Completion percentage, sorry. So, listen, there's some good stats out there to suggest that Brock Purdy is still a great quarterback, and although this hasn't been the season of our dreams, there might be, like Kyle Shanahan said, just a few tweaks away from being a better team. I'm not going to go as far as to say, they're just a couple things away from an 8-2 team or whatever. Like, who cares, okay? I'm not going to bother arguing that point because the bottom line is the 49ers are 5-5. It doesn't matter if you think you could have been 8-2. You're 5-5. That's what you have to work with, so who cares? But that's my take, okay? Now, Brandon Allen, while we're, talking about quarterbacks and what they can and can't do, he most certainly can get it done. And we even heard him talk about today in a press conference. I listened to those things. I don't know if you do, but he talked about how he learned from Brock Purdy. And that's interesting to me because, I was talking to a diehard Minnesota Vikings fan, one of my buddies, about Sam Darnold before the season started. And I told him, I bet you Sam Darnold's going to look better as a Minnesota Viking. Things are just going to fall perfectly for him in terms of who he's playing with, having Kevin O'Connell be his coach, and also having the fact that he sat behind Brock Purdy an entire season, learned under Kyle Shanahan, learned through about their whole system. And there's just no doubt in my mind that a quarterback like Sam Darnold, high draft pick, doesn't really, he disappointed a lot. Okay? And he's sitting behind the last pick in the draft. How could you not learn from Mr. Irrelevant, from a guy who's overcome all the odds and has found his way onto the field and has found a way to be successful? I just have to believe that you have to learn in that situation because obviously Brock Purdy's doing something to go from being a guy that nobody valued to being a guy that is highly rated, and many people consider a top 5, top 10 quarterback. Okay? Again, not going to get in that argument today. So I believe the same thing is possible for Brandon Allen. I believe that Brandon Allen can have seen improvement. That's a really weird way to say that. Having sat behind Brock Purdy and had to wait his turn for an opportunity. Can he process at the speed Brock Purdy processes that? No, not traditionally, not so far. But he's been around for a while now. He's played on a couple teams. Let's just see what happens. You know what? It's one of those games where it would have been tough to win no matter what. You look at it now and you say, if they lose, you kind of say, quarterback was out and whatever. I get that there's like those kinds of things. The 49ers have nobody to blame but themselves for being 5-5. And so they're going to go in there and they're going to treat that game like a real game. If you do the things that you need to do, if you run the ball successfully, consistently, over and over, and if you get that defense out there and bring that nasty defense back that the 49ers are known for, I mean, just bring that level of attitude back. If you can get some of those things going for you, and Brendan Allen can play decent, which we've seen Kyle Shanahan use decent quarterbacks and play very well many times. So if that can happen, then I think the 49ers have a shot to win. And you're really just hoping that nobody else gets injured as you work your way into another game coming up next week against the Buffalo Bills, which is a massive game. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays. I'm going to watch the game, and I hope you're going to watch the game, despite the fact that it might not go super well early on. I'm going to be watching the game. I'm excited to watch it. I actually have an event going on that day, so I'm going to watch like half the game, and then I have to watch the second half of the game on the car ride home. My wife's going to drive so I can watch the second half of the game on the car ride home. And, I'll still hopefully get in here to do a video for you and all that good stuff. But I'm really optimistic, all right? Not that the 49ers are going to win necessarily, but that the 49ers are going to be competitive. And I'm hoping that they're going to win, obviously. So, let me know what you think in the comments as always. This is a crazy time to be alive.